The best types of writing for you to learn from are actual student essays. That's why today I'm going to walk you through some examples of literary analysis that my students have just written. That way you can see what students are writing well right now in this present moment, as well as real-world practical examples with tangible advice for improvement. Yes! Hello, I'm Clay Zuba, inventor of Zubify. Today, we're reviewing literary analysis essays. My students have just finished writing these, and we're going to look at a very small sample of what they're writing and what they're turning into me. I'm hoping that reviewing these essays will help you understand how to structure writing and have a line of reasoning that carries through an essay. Whether you're a student right now in AP Language and Literature, or whether you're a writer who wants to follow good writing principles for a thesis-driven essay that will carry your reader through your reasoning from start to finish. My students have given me permission to use their writing in my videos, and I'm going to be nice to them. So I just want to assure you that no students are going to be harmed in the making of this video. And I want to thank my students who have allowed me to share their writing. As teachers, we don't have enough good examples of student writing that we can use to help other students learn to write. So thanks a lot, students, for helping others all over the world. Yes. Let's transition now to the writing prompt they used, as well as the structure they'll be following, followed by the real examples. All right, so let's start with the prompt that my students were writing for. As you can see from this prompt here, this is a thematic analysis essay. Even though I'm teaching this for AP Lang and Composition, this is the type of essays that you might have to write for AP Literature and Composition. See that my students wrote this essay 2 times in class, and each time they were able to choose one of these works. They then had time to complete the essay, they revised and did a peer review before turning in the final draft. This is a process that took 3 or 4 days. They were choosing from one of the works below and composing an essay that establishes and analyzes how the author communicates their thematic message. They were supposed to analyze how the author uses literary devices, and they should be analyzing here at least 2. Beyond this, their requirements were to begin with the thesis. They could start with a full introduction, but because I haven't taught this, I didn't require them to write this. They were going to include evidence to support the thesis's claim about how the author used literary devices, and then they would use commentary to explain how the evidence supported the thesis. It should be an MLA format and end with a concluding sentence. My students are writing their body paragraphs based on a video that I made for them called How to Write a Paragraph. I'll link it for you below in case you'd like to know how I teach paragraphs to my students. But basically, structurally, it's a topic sentence, followed by evidence, followed by commentary, which connects back to the topic sentence. In other words, shows how the evidence proves the claim of the topic sentence, followed by more evidence, followed by more commentary, followed by a concluding sentence that links back up to the thesis of the essay. As we're looking at these essays, they might have more than one piece of evidence per paragraph, but it's not required. All right, now that you know the prompt and now that you know what we're looking for in these essays, let's start looking at essays. Here's essay 1, and I'm just going to read through these as I would read them, and I'm going to kind of show you my internal thinking about this essay as I'm reading it. So I'd be reading along, I'd be thinking, oh, nice thesis. Repetition, metaphor, in second person, foster an exuberant and nostalgic tenor that allows for the reader to become engulfed in the story. So this is a pretty good thesis because it shows literary devices, but in a way it's not super strong of a thesis because it's not showing me a thematic message that this essay is going to be analyzing. As I go through my topic sentences, I can see that this writer is organizing their paragraphs around the literary devices. I would notice, however, though, that this first line here, for example, this first topic sentence is not a claim. Instead, the primary purpose is to answer evidence. And the weakness of this type of topic sentence is that, remember just a couple minutes ago when I showed you the way the commentary should be pointing back to how the evidence supports the claim in the topic sentence. Well, since there's no real claim in here in this topic sentence about the way that the literary device proves a specific thematic message or aspect of thematic message, the commentary is going to have a hard time knowing what it's supposed to be about. And the body paragraphs kind of show that this writer was having that kind of difficulty, because if you read the body paragraphs, you'll see that they don't really fully analyze evidence. This first commentary is analyzing part of evidence, but not all the evidence. The second one is purportedly analyzing metaphor, but it ends up really talking in a way that makes us think it's about imagery. And the final one doesn't really show how second person is contributing to a theme. So this one, while this writer clearly knows structurally how to write this essay, while this writer definitely understands the basic structure of what this essay is supposed to look like, the topic sentences and the evidence and the commentary aren't necessarily focusing back to a specific theme, because there's no specific theme in the thesis sentence. So this essay is probably, it's probably scoring in the range of like 10 out of 20. It's doing maybe half the things that we're looking for right, and maybe half the things it's not doing at all, or it's not doing them effectively. Let's look at another essay. This writer tells us that she's studying Billy Collins' poem, The Blues. As I read along here, I'm looking through here for a specific literary device named, and I don't have one. I don't really know if I have a clear theme. Maybe that music helps people connect to each other through empathy. I think I'm going to infer that that is the theme we're writing about. But we're missing definitely a mention of specific literary devices. Here in my first topic sentence, we've got an identification of tone, but also mood in this paragraph to convey a sense of disappointment. That's good, because there's a specific purpose of the literary devices. I'm anticipating that this paragraph is going to be about tone and mood. Then I have evidence here, but then the commentary doesn't really explain tone or mood. It instead makes an interpretation of the evidence without clearly showing how the writer is getting to this evidence. And then I've got a concluding sentence here that seems to build off the previous interpretation, but it doesn't connect back to the topic sentence in any way. That's unfortunate. This paragraph isn't working. I then have another paragraph about figurative language, which is a little vague because there's a lot of different kinds of figurative language. Then I have some evidence, I think. It's being summarized here, but this writer is relying on one sentence here to do both evidence and all the commentary. It's kind of a lot of work that's being asked of for this sentence. And as a result, this paragraph also doesn't clearly analyze any evidence. This writer is kind of probably getting a similar score to the previous essay, probably kind of maybe even a little less, because this writer, while I do get a sense of thinking about the poem, maybe I see evidence of more thinking than the previous writer did, it's not doing as many things well structurally as the previous one did, because it doesn't have a clear thesis about literary devices, and the topic sentences are not clearly focusing the essay. Here's a third example, and this third example is an example of an essay that definitely demonstrates that a writer has done some thinking about this poem. In fact, maybe some deep thinking about the poem, but the writing doesn't clearly show the thinking and how the writer goes from literary devices to interpretations. For example, this thesis sentence here says this essay is going to study repetition and imagery and how Millet persuades the reader to see ordinary experiences as sacred memories that endure a greater meaning. What? That's interesting. I like that as a thesis. That's intriguing. I've got a topic sentence there then that says the author uses repetition to emphasize the endless cycle and rhythm of memories between the two protagonists. That is a strong topic sentence. I like that. That's intriguing. Unfortunately, from this point, the essay kind of doesn't move the thinking forward, because I have evidence, but then I've got this language about emphasis again and a repeated memory, but it seems like you've got to emphasize something first through evidence, then you should repeat emphasis. So that doesn't quite make sense. It shows how seemingly small and an insignificant night could have had a lasting emotional and nostalgic presence. I don't clearly get here about from this simple phrase, we were tired all night on the ferry. I'm not seeing it. So I think this writer has done a lot of thinking. This writer is just not showing it to me. This commentary here is a little bit better because it's specific about what's being alluded to, but it still doesn't help me with the endless cycle and rhythm of memories in how the writer is getting from their evidence to their interpretation. The second line is trying to analyze the same repetition. The writer falls back to this language about endless motion and a cycle of eternal joy and a cyclical view of memories. And she's writing about these, and these are interesting sentences. They are intriguing, but we're still not seeing the way that this one piece of evidence here is building toward this endless motion and toward a cycle of eternal joy. This essay scores a little bit higher because I'm showing a clear structure that's doing the things that we're teaching in this class, and it's also showing evidence of thinking. Just the evidence of thinking is not as clear as we would like it to be. Let's look at example number 4. This writer has a thesis that says Millet uses imagery and repetition to illustrate how memory preserves the truths of the past even as time and the world moves forward. I like that. That has literary devices in it, and it shows a clear theme. Yes, good job, writer. Here in our topic sentence, Millet reinforces, employs repetition, portray impactful moments, can be embedded into memories. Yes, that's a strong topic sentence. The writer then talks about the repetition of this one line. There's kind of no clear commentary here. This writer says through the repetition of this seemingly simple line, the author is able to ground the reader into the setting and the importance of the memory. The line is repeated multiple times throughout the poem to act as a foundation to support the meaning. That might be true, but I'm really unclear here about how it's a foundation, how it supports meaning, what the importance of the memory is. In a way, even though we've got 2 sentences here, they're both kind of empty, and we don't have anything concrete here that's doing any analyzing or interpretation. The writer then shows that there's another line being repeated here. We were very tired, we were very merry. Appears in the poem, uses this line to show a mix of emotions. I get that, that's good. Felt by characters. I'm interested maybe in what emotions these are, but I kind of get an idea of it at least. Just care about juxtaposing feelings of fatigue with happiness. Yes, I get that. By including words to convey the feelings in the poem, the author is able to show how emotions can be better preserved in memory than facts. Now I'm losing this line of reasoning here because this writer really, it would be helpful if she could connect this evidence here to this idea about emotions being more preserved in memory than facts. It might be useful to know the difference between the two. It might be useful to understand what kind of facts. So I hope you're seeing the way that as a reader of this essay, even though this writer has the correct structure and I can see this writer trying to explain their ideas, the writing unfortunately isn't able to make the thinking clear. This essay would score a little higher than the 2. Maybe it's a C, maybe it's a B. I don't know. This author is definitely doing some things right. Let's look at our 2 final examples, which are our most strong examples of writing. And you should be able to see immediately a difference between this essay, essay number 5, and essay number 1. Essay number 1, essay number 5. See the way these paragraphs are much longer. That tells me that the commentary is going to be much more developed. Now, I still have to read that commentary because that commentary might not make any sense, but it's a good indication that this writer is trying to show more thinking than the writer in the first essay. I've got a thesis about hyperbole and personification. Collins brings to life the emotional reach of music. I guess I know what that means. Showing how it softens even the most indifferent hearts and connects strangers through shared sorrow. Now I definitely understand what this writer means through emotional reach of music. This is eloquently written. Good job, writer. First topic sentence, like the grieving man throwing open his windows and singing his heart break into the streets, Collins uses exaggerated language and hyperbole to convey his message. That's very well written and intriguing. Good job. Here's my evidence. My evidence is this line: they will shift to the sympathetic edge of their chairs. Exaggeration creates an image of listeners leaning in. Good. Exaggerates the idea of investment using the phrase edge of chairs. Good. I like the way this writer is referring back to specific language from their quote. Captivating. Good. This is showing interpretation of the evidence. Good. The writer then moves on to another piece of evidence. You will not sleep unless you release a finger. I meld a song, will not be able to sleep. La, 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 la. It keeps them up night, hurting their health. A little vague. So it allows it to match the emotional pain. A little vague. So this writing is good. It could be a little more specific, though. That would be a little bit more helpful. Hurting their health in what way? Is it from vaping too much? I hope not. I hope this blues player is not a vapor. Let's move on to our final essay. Let's look for the same kinds of things we looked for in the other essays. Thesis for keeps thematic message that love is a paradoxical mystery that is both eternal and vulnerable, reminiscent of how the natural world is. Okay, I don't have a literary device here. Imagery and personification. Okay, 2-sentence thesis, no problem. Let's go to our topic sentences. The use of carefully selected words to conjure scenes appealing to some sort of 5 senses. Okay, this is about imagery. Immerses the reader in the tale of love and beauty found in nature. Okay, strong topic sentence. Here then I've got my example of imagery. Then here I've got some mundane things, plants growing, can have new meaning when looked at. I think this is right. I'm hoping that this writer is going to build on this thinking and show it to me. The sun rising and the plants growing also have connotations of a new beginning and a shift. So this also tells me this writer has moved on in their thinking, though, from this statement here. So this statement is left a little vague. Connotation, I do get this. New day different from the last one, coming of spring, I get that. Change of seasons, I get that. Implies a passage of time, although the author creates a mood of the scene outside the influence of time, despite the story-like narrative and the fundamental changing essence of nature. That's kind of interesting. I would like it explained a little more. Phrase rhythm of your heart, linking there a sense of sound. Yes, a heartbeat is something that is universal. Okay, now she's analyzing the imagery here, the evidence, that's great. Vitality and home, heart and home, I think so. The word heart may have a double meaning, either the physical organ or the embodiment of life and love. I like that, so it's a symbol. With a person, sign precious relationship between two subjects. The phrase warm southern wind literally implies the setting of taking place somewhere hot in the desert. So this writer did a pretty good job of walking us through their thinking in the first paragraph. And if you read along, I think you'll see that they do an even better job in their paragraph about personification. Notice that it takes a lot more space to write thorough and clear commentary than does to cite evidence. Some of these students are having one sense of evidence, one sense of commentary. That is not going to do it because it takes much more to explain literary devices and how they work to portray a theme than it does to just use the literary devices. Because literary devices compress meaning. When you interpret and analyze, you unpack the meaning, meaning it takes up a lot more space. I hope that this video has helped you see the kinds of habits and the kinds of writing that are effective when you're writing analytical essays versus the types of writing that are less effective. I think you can see that commentary is the heart of analytical writing. And your commentary needs to really specifically analyze your evidence and really specifically show your interpretation of the evidence, and also really specifically show how your evidence is supporting your thesis. It probably seems simple to you in your head when you're writing because it's all in your head, but the art of writing is showing your reader your thinking. Just because you're a good reader and a good thinker doesn't guarantee that your writing is going to be effective. It's a really good start, but reading and thinking on their own will not get you to a well-written essay.